We're out here in the chicken yard, and today I'd like to sort and sift some compost. Our system in the front yard here with our chickens is driven by a desire to generate compost along with the chickens, for those of you who don't know about our channel. And I realized there's some neat notes to share here. In the process of developing this system, there were ways to integrate many yields in one stroke. So not only can we sift compost, but we can also be feeding our chickens at the same time. And we can also set up systems around the work that we're doing that can absorb excess nutrient for extremely high value and yield. Let me share some notes. The tool that I'm using to sift compost is the same thing that I made, boy, I'd have to look back at the video to figure out. I'm gonna guess 6 years ago or so. I made a video going into greater detail when this looked a lot shinier and new, but here it is still working. You get the gist. I don't think there's anything prescriptive about this where it must be the same dimensions, but the basic idea of an A-frame with some sort of metal mesh, the finer the metal mesh, the more accurately and thoroughly it sifts the compost. But I would say within reason, this is a 1 to 2 inch mesh, and it's good enough for us for what it sends through. And so this does a really nice job. It picks out last little flecks of trash, bread twist, and then also sticks and rocks that we might want to sift and use as mulch for perennial plantings. But what's beautiful about this is not only is it sifting compost, but it's putting layers of material out where the chickens have easy access. You can see they poke at it from both sides. That one just found a worm. And we can in fact load this entire plane with a ton of material, walk away for a day, and let the chickens do all of the sorting and kicking through themselves while getting a huge amount of food. So I'm not going to make the effort here to actively sift and shake through this material. The chickens will derive a huge amount of pleasure for doing that for us. We pile it up, we walk away, they've got activity for the whole darn day. I'll add another layer of efficiency with this and stacking yields and function, and take a container that will be used to bring the compost out and into the garden and load it up underneath the screen. And so this way, as I dig in and put the material for sorting, the sorted compost goes right into the container. As the chickens work on it throughout the day, they quite literally help fill the containers of compost while they're looking for sprouts and worms and aerating and turning and shredding the compost one last time. It's very cooperative and really pretty fun for them. I definitely enjoy watching it happen. I used to be so worried about pouring the compost and having it land on the backs of the hens, but I realized over time they don't seem to care. And at this stage, the compost has got a huge amount of probiotics, and the chickens like to dust bathe anyway. So I'm guessing it works. So after a while, thank you for your service, we've got a container that has sifted enough compost to go into the garden. Probably the best use would be to use this as an incredibly rich mulch around established plants at first. Certainly could throw some seeds at it. There's still some sprouts, there's still weed seeds, there's definitely still a worm or two. But cooperatively, the hens have helped get this container ready to aim towards the garden. Thank you, ladies. This part of our chicken composting flow system is where the finishing, the aged compost tends to rest, where we do this last round of sifting in cooperation with the hens. And there's a huge amount of excess nutrient that sits here and with heavy rains can get washed out. So the additional layer of stacking functions and having yields, not necessarily something everybody would want to do, but a consideration. In the compost chicken yard area, what does it look like to set up nursery beds? or annual crop production, that when it rains a lot, when the compost is sitting there, it's feeding and nourishing crops. This is an example of just how obscenely fertile some of these nursery beds can be. We had chicken wire set up to protect these trees from chipmunks and hens throughout the season. These are Japanese walnuts. They're about 3.5 feet tall already. They shot right through. We haven't watered these once the entire season. They're collecting the excess nutrient that is in orbit all around them. And in the fall, we can dig them out, plant them in the landscape, sell them, trade them, gift them, and have that soil to then be sifted with the chickens and sent to the garden. This is a bed of probably about 40 to 50 hazelnuts. They're at around 2 feet tall. They probably would happily get to about 3 feet tall, and they are soaking up all of the excess juices and nutrients from this compost while it waits to be sifted. Extremely high value plants for a future of resilient food systems. In fact, this 4-foot by 16-foot bed has 50 or so hazelnuts, maybe 100 or so first-year pawpaws, another 50 or so American persimmon, and also beets growing where there's a gap. We had a failure of another nursery crop, so we're growing root crops in here. And in fact, I even see shagbark hickory and thornless honey locust volunteers, all fueled immensely by the fertility of this compost while it waits to leave and work elsewhere, capturing excess nutrient right in the landscape where it's being generated. This might be a little too extreme. It's certainly over yielding to the point where we haven't been able to get in here, but this high tunnel is laid out on contour, down slope from all of this composting. We put some tomatoes in here in the spring. I don't know, well, I know we didn't water. We haven't been able to get in here for about a month. We should have pruned a lot more actively. But if you look in there, you can see, if we were able to get in somehow, how much food there is. There's a fig on the far end. There's many, many, many pounds of tomatoes. None of that received any fertilizer. None of that received any irrigation. It's all the excess fertility from this system, almost to a point of obscenely over yielding. This compost sifter has served us very well, and certainly making something along this line, again, that video has the details, would be great, but maybe you can do something similar to this with 2 pallets that are connected with ropes at the top. Maybe you can do something with chicken wire that you find. You can be creative with it. We used old hinges that we found. Pretty ragamuffin build overall, but it's worked well enough. And anytime we can integrate the chicken's desire and activities into our own desires and activities, things are going to move in a better way, and we get to have this much more healthy cooperative relationship with these wonderful hens in our landscape and generate a ton of fertility together. They don't mind helping.